Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, your number one podcast for all things Assassin's Creed. Today's episode, we are revisiting an episode I did way back on the 11th of the 1st, 2020. It's just over a year ago. In that episode, I asked the question, do we need assassins in Assassin's Creed? It was a very bold statement to make, and one that I do stand by. But on reflection, I have noticed that this episode is too broad and too narrow-minded. It's only from my perspective. So out of fairness, I thought it'd be a great time to revisit that topic and re-ask the question, do we need assassins to make an Assassin's Creed game? And joining me to help answer this question is Nick from the Assassin's Creed Discord server.
Hello there, and it's good to be back here again. Woohoo!
Yeah, I think everybody knows by now, once you're on this show once, you have to come back. It's like mandatory.
I know, right?
I should make a...
You mean third time's a lucky charm as well? I'll come for it. Yeah.
Yeah. As I always say to people, once you've been on my show, don't be shy. If you come on my show once and then you think, you know what, I really want to talk about this or this, you just have to slide me a message, say, look, can I come back on to discuss this message? I'm never going to turn it down. I'll just have to find my journal to see if I'm not booked up. I always seem to lose my journal.
Oh, you'll find it. If you can use the Animus, then revisit your memory. Little bit Animus joke there, but never mind.
I need an Animus, guys. So the question, do we need assassins, is very blunt.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say before we do start, I'm not asking that should Assassin's Creed just rip out assassins, because I do stand by that. We need assassins. But could you balance a game where modern day is Templar only with no assassins, but the past is assassins? Or the modern day all assassins using similar mission sequences as AC3, where Desmond went out to find certain artifacts based off Connor's memory, but your memory is of a ex-assassin, now Templar, similar to Rogue, but we don't actually see why he went rogue, if that makes sense.
Right. In answer to your first part of the questions, you have a Templar origin story for modern day and Assassin story. This actually happened with Black Flag, so it is possible that. But the converse is not possible, because you must also know that the modern day sequence is about 10% of your entire game. And if you do a full assassin-based modern day and have a full Templar-based origin story of someone in part of the past sequence, that is where you're going to spend most of your time. That's where you're going to spend most of your activities. It is detrimental, and it is something that Ubisoft should not do. I hope they do not do. But if you're planning to do, I do have some suggestions on it, but we can get more onto it after I hear your suggestions on this particular answer.
Well, my suggestions on that particular answer is one that I've seen hundreds of fans cry out for, and it's a fan like me, is we know that modern day is 10%, and Assassin's Creed, as you said, the past is the main bulk of it. But a lot of fans, including me, have wanted a more fleshier modern day. So, in my opinion, if we put it on a reverse, where we did have a mainline game which was focused in the modern day, but we had little segments of going in the Animus and using location data from the past, which is a Templar, so it probably wouldn't work as a big open world. It'd have to be a heavy linear game, just like the old games was. But fans do want a modern day game. They think it'd be cool to see a modern day assassin, interacting with the city, the way the parkour could be more like Unity.
Actually, this is what Watch Dogs was supposed to be, but unfortunately they changed the direction for Watch Dogs 2. Because they were able to tie in Watch Dogs 1 with the AC universe, and in Watch Dogs 2 they were like, no, they're deviating from it. So what we can see is, as a solution for that, is either you ditch the title of Assassin's Creed entirely and work on a new game, but if you want to keep it in the same universe, keep it I think that's my only solution, to be fair. That you dish the title of Assassin's Creed if you want a full, totally based, say, Templar based. But if you want like a more fleshier modern day, that is possible. But with the current system requirements and your demands, it means that you have to reduce the game size as well, like a lot for the pass sequence. That means it needs to be what we do with the Vinland arc or with the Asgard, Jotunheim, these separate isolated events. That's what we need. That's what we'll be able to see constantly. If you're doing a more fleshier modern day sequence, that could work as an Assassin's Creed game. But again, if you're making it a full Templar base, people will expect more time spending in the past because Animus is the core feature for an Assassin's Creed game. And that would cause more divide than it's supposed to be. But again, there'll be divide for anything these days. So
And the biggest concern that I realized after making that episode and talking to you the other day is if Assassin's Creed isn't about assassins, just about assassins. The game has always been built since day one as assassins versus Templars, but also the Isu. Now, if Assassin's Creed, as we discussed the other day, deviated and made Assassin's Creed Universe separate titles as for Isu or Templar game, it will run into the same problem that they're facing now, where a lot of fans are angry that certain storylines are played out through transmedia and not the actual games. And this causes a divide where collectors like me are hunting far and wide to get every piece of lore they can, but sometimes they can't. And the biggest issue I will point to is Assassin's Creed Forsaken.
oh no,
We
they have already did that to us. Ubisoft has already done that to us with transmedia. Like for example, in order to understand the plot between Unity and Syndicate, you need to know the transmedia content between the comics in order to understand what actually happened in Dr. Grammatica's lab. So that is something that Ubisoft have already done that. So if they could do this better and they want to expand more on this, because I know they would go for it because new source of revenue is always good for them. So they can go for a new separate title and go for like say, hey, this is from the same AC universe. So say the new game is called The Templar Order, and you just have a tagline saying, hey, this is from the same universe as AC as Assassin's Creed. This will cause either the older fans to consume the content and new players testing out the Templar story. This will then lead out to what we have, like a like two faction support, like for example, whether you're Team Cassandra or Team Alexios and stuff like that.
and it will probably cause a mini divide between, let's say, as you said, a game called Templar Order, and let's say in that Templar Order, because they'll have to keep a cohesive timeline for the universe, if something happens that's explained in the game, if someone is not interested in the Templars, they have to then go out to YouTube or find a book or ask a friend.
Yeah, that's normal.
What's
I find
happens?
that's normal because
And
already Assassin's Creed has done that to us with transmedia. So
and you can't, and I can't accept that at times because there's a lot of fans, including me, that are angry that the Juno arc was lost
yes,
into a comic, and which is why I think Assassin's Creed, and I will stand by, shouldn't have to focus Assassin's Creed just on assassins because separating itself to different titles, different transmedia, except for television. I think television's different because everyone can catch up on television. But books or different games will cause a divide in the culture of the games because some people will be for, some people will be against. And if they try and keep the universe cohesive, then a lot of people will be like, well, why couldn't they just put that into an Assassin's Creed game, not a
exactly.
Templar
So
game?
to answer this, I'm going to take an analogy. So well, let's go. Let's take with Harry Potter now. If I want a story behind, say, Draco Malfoy, and if I keep the book title as Harry Potter and the Life of Draco, and the entire book about Draco would be, well, entire book would be about Draco. That's what I meant to say. Wow, messed my words there. But you see where that goes with, right? So you have an Assassin's Creed universe, where you want to go somewhere in a totally different direction, try out something totally different, new, why do you have the title Assassin's Creed? You can just put in a different title and let it be like the Templar, say for it's the Templar, the Templar Order, and let that be an off-brand series. It need not be Assassin's. It need not have the brand value of Assassin's Creed, and that could work wonders. The success of this, you can determine this off is by spin-off series from, for example, in the Harry Potter series, Fantastic Beasts, and they're growing really, really well as a franchise. Apart from as Harry Potter, which is pretty great. But imagine if it was Harry Potter and the adventures of the Fantastic Beasts and where to find them. It would not be great because it's a totally different franchise, a totally different story, a totally different uh, plot that comes under the same universe. So I feel in my opinion, I feel that if they want to go deviate from the assassin storyline, best way to do so is by putting it under a different title and then calling it a different name and then say that hey, this is part of the AC universe. So it'll have a relation. It will not be like, hey, assassins are going to be there in that particular plot. It's just the Templar's perspective. It's like reading the like in Unity you have Elise's perspective, right, in the book, I mean. So that you can actually see that in game. So those people who are interested would actually join in. And if they are not, they might just see the plot summary and then move forward.
which is a healthy way to do the universes. But as an argument that I was meant to post in the first video, but I didn't, and it's one that I feel some cultures do have a problem with, and certain
Hmm.
media, some comics can struggle with, is the fact of Assassin's Creed has three pillars. We have First Civilization, First Civilization, the Templars, and the Assassins. And at the moment, Assassin's Creed's lent so much on Assassins, it's what we expect. But to then have to say, well, we can't have First Civilization or Templars as a main point of a game in Assassin's Creed, it has to be a spin off. We can't have Assassin's Creed where the main character's a Templar or the main character's. I know it's not possible because they prefer to play with history than go back, but this is just a hypothesis. Or the character's Eve from the Isu War, and forcing them to be a spin off, in my opinion, actually tears at what makes Assassin's Creed because it's that whole yes, it's the Assassins versus Templars and
I don't
the
think
whole
so.
Isu
I mean, they can
game.
still maintain the three pillars if they want to. Like, if they want the East of Factions, they can maintain that with the Templar story. Like I said, it's like being in a different. It's a different story, but in the same universe. Like for it's like saying like in Fantastic Beast, they don't use wands now. They use a pot or a brew kit as their magic abilities, which is ridiculous. So it's just set in the same universe. It's just we're seeing it from a different perspective. And if you do that in an Assassin's Creed title where you're not planning to keep assassins at all, it would be, well, how do I say it? It's like you're not actually focusing on it, right? You're turning away from the identity of the series itself. So that's what we need to focus on, and or we as in like I'm hoping Ubisoft would focus on. If they want a more varied story, they should be careful that it does not cause a sort of confusion when you're expecting the name Assassin's Creed and not have assassins in it. So that's what I'm going for.
And I do agree, and I will say I do understand, and I do actually accept that, and that's something I understand. But in my opinion, looking at how Black Flag and Rogue was built up,
Hmm.
technically Edward Kenway wasn't an assassin way to the end, but the backdrop was Assassins vs Templars, just how Valhalla's doing. To me, that was very interesting because Black Flag is technically, until near enough the end, a Templar
Yeah,
game. It's the Templars. Um,
not Black Flag.
Ed,
That would be Rogue, not Black Flag.
what was my meaning is the modern day
Oh, right, right, right.
Templar,
Yeah.
but the past of Edward, he was just a pirate who could have been a Templar because Duncan Walpole was switching factions from Assassins to Templars, and it wasn't until the end that he joined the faction. And in my opinion, that counts as not an Assassin's Creed game because he's not technically an assassin. Rogue, you deviate from the Brotherhood to be in a
Right.
Templar.
So there are certain. No, what I meant as a Templar origin again. This is again what people call the purist ideology. So if you call it Assassin's Creed, it only needs to contain assassins, no Templars, no Isu, and that does not happen. So that does not correlate with the pure nature of how AC is. Like that's not AC. AC revolves around the ideologies of assassins and Templars. Assassins being on the side of the good and Templars being on the side of the evil. Sometimes it is switched, which is why Rogue was a bit of a turning point because this is the first time we saw in a different light. And it's also there that I also felt at that time was like, hey, I wish this was called something else because later in future, what if they deviate so much and they have a game where there are no assassins and still call it Assassin's Creed? This was one of my major concerns during back in the day, and I'm afraid that it's also happening now. So we are slowly reaching to that reality, and yeah, that
But this is where. Sorry, carry on.
yeah. So right. So this is where I feel like where AC has that sort of core pillars and trying not to deviate from. Like you can have like a setup similar to what Rogue did because you switch from an assassin to a Templar. So basically, you are an assassin seeing the perspective of a Templar view. So that means you still have your hidden blade. You still have all the teachings of your brotherhood, and you're using that for a Templar cause that might work but remember it's hanging on a like a thin line. It went on a very thin line that it was a Templar game, and that having that title like being Assassin's Creed Rogue, it made sense because it was an assassin that turned rogue. But if you want a pure Templar based story, then having that title name as Assassin's Creed wouldn't work even if you put just assassins in the modern day.
See, and this is where I think, which is why I admitted in the intro, my first question of do we need assassins was too broad. If I had to narrow it down, and I'm actually so on board with what you said, I am, but I'm sticking to my points. I don't actually believe, and this is why I should have made the points clear in the first one, that assassins should be removed completely. I
Exactly.
think how Assassin's Creed has been going with Origins under Valhalla is great, but I do think the next game should have an assassin. But that's another point I want to discuss in a moment. I do think they should have someone affiliated, but the point I failed to make in the first one, which is why I'm so glad we revisited, is my ideology isn't a game with none of them in. It's
A
how
different
do it,
perspective. You just want a different
yes,
perspective. You want to see, like, for example, in that's the best thing about Rogue was is that you saw the faults of the assassins. Before then it was black and white. Assassins good, Templars bad. But you must also know that assassins are killers. They are not good people. They kill people for the sake of justice. And if you look what Templars do, Templar try to maintain order, and their objectives are still the same. This is a very same gray area that was first introduced in AC1. In the subsequent games, it became more of a black and white situation. AC1, we see Altair going and assassinating his targets, and his targets have the same goal, peace, and this conflicts him. And this is what he tells to his mentor, stating that I'm paraphrasing because, of course, it's been years. Mentor being like he asks Al Mualim like I'm feeling conflicted about the ideologies because our 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 end goal and their end goal is the same. They all want peace. And why did I kill him? And Almolan replies that is the method of the way they achieve that splits them, right? So assassins want freedom, or they want free will and have peace in that, whereas Templars wants that's very same piece but through order. This is like a it's sort of like a paradox, and it's sort of like a coin, two sides of a coin situation. if you have one side, you need to have the other side. That means if you need to have peace, you need to have order, and you need to have freedom. If you split that up, if you try to take one over the other, it always causes that same conflict, which is why Assassin's Creed ideology was super, super good. Now, people wanted to see more of that Templar based story because you're going to see through the eyes where order is being used as a method for peace. We saw this trace of this in AC3 when we played with Edward Kenway. Was it Edward? No, not Edward. Haytham Kenway. Oh my god. So Haytham Kenway, and then we see more of this happening again with Haytham in Rogue. Then we see this happening. Then it went again black and white with Unity and in Syndicate. It became extremely black and white in Syndicate. Um, but yeah, but we also see how the Templars were able to maintain order regardless of all the chaos that was out there. And we saw that through Jacob's actions through Syndicate. So that view of a Templar saying that, hey, assassins are doing is bad is something that I would also love to see. But to put it in like in a full purist way where there are no more assassins anymore would be super, like having the full ideology, like, hey, I'm starting as an assassin, ending as going as an assassin and ending as an assassin, is, and having that Assassin's Creed title. Oh wait, I think I messed it up. What I meant is you have a Templar that is not going as an assassin. I mean, like you're going as a Templar from the start, in the middle, and the end, not touching their tools. You're using your own methods to defeat the assassins. Then, yeah, having that Assassin's Creed title won't work. Having a different title may work, but if you want to see it in a different perspective, then going in the approach of what Rogue did would work. But again, it's on a very, very thin line.
And it's that thin line that my first video failed to point out. That's the thin line that I want to see from Assassin's Creed, because my ideal Assassin's Creed game, and people can say it's silly, is they capture a Templar agent, right?
Hmm.
And the reason he captures Templar agent is because his bloodline betrayed the Templars and caused a Templar fall in certain AD. So when you play it, you play as the Templar, but the Templar is being groomed by the assassins to become a member of the Brotherhood because his ideologies isn't lining up with the Templars anymore. So as you play the game, you do start off using Templars tools and tricks, but as the game progresses, you suddenly start using more. Like how Eivor learned free running from Haytham, Valhalla. I mean, Leap of Faith. So as the game progresses, the Templar starts to learn to be an assassin, and at the end of the game, the Templar does become an assassin. It causes a similar system to the Great Purge, but on a mini scale. And in my eyes, that's more of a Templar game because you're playing it through
Yeah,
Templars as it deviates.
right. It becomes like, actually right now we're going to a point where, what if our entire 13 games history was switched to a Templar? Like it just, you're just giving the plus and minuses and you're just switching it off. That's what I see with what you're going with here. And
Yeah,
if that happens, then again, it's the same issue that comes in. You put it under as a Templar Order game and have it saying that, hey, it's part of the same universe. People will accept it. Fans who don't like it can just look it up online so that they don't feel lost. And at the same time, they can, if they are dedicated, like how I am, I would definitely play the Templar game because I would love to see it. And right, if they don't like it, they can just look up online. I mean, I have done that with a lot of transmedia content where I'm not able to consume, and I've done that. So I'm guilty of
but
it, but yes, that's the fate of capitalism, and I don't want to be a victim of that. So I only consume content that I need. So that is gaming, and not transmedia like books or comics. But I do read books, so that's another content that I consume. So right.
but on that Templar game, the reason why I would suggest that would work as an Assassin's Creed title is if it followed the cohesive assassin modern day storyline, and it was a Templar becoming an assassin at the end and being trained by the assassins and having an assassin modern day, to me, that is still Assassin's Creed because it's still about the
It
assassins and the
sounds
Brotherhood.
more like what Layla Hassan just went through.
Yeah, I will admit I've not completed Valhalla, so some of these points may be picked up in Valhalla near the
No, I'm
end.
talking about Origins. Like, she was an Abstergo employee,
Yeah,
and towards the end, William Miles comes in, and then next thing we know is that in some part in the transmedia, she becomes an assassin. Like, we don't know how,
yes.
but she's an assassin now because Templars are hunting her. So that's all we know, and that is something that I would love to see in a Templar base game. Is that why do we need to choose the Templars apart from Rogue's perspective? Rogue's perspective was good because you went from assassin to Templar, but again, the way how Rogue went, and most people consider Rogue as a spin-off series, which is, I understand why, but I wish Assassin's Creed or Ubisoft would actually take this idea, like, hey, I want to go and deviate, put up a new storyline. Let me give it to a separate title. Then we wouldn't have this argument of like, oh my god, just because you have the name Assassin's Creed, you'd have no assassins, no hidden blade, blah blah blah, and that conflict would be over forever. So I would be happy with it. I mean, I would be happy with it too. So as a very lore enthusiast, I would definitely be happy with it. You know what? A perfect blend of assassins and Templars would be a co-op.
Yes.
A perfect blend. Like, if you want a full blend where, hey, I wish I could be an assassin or I wish I could be a Templar, would be a perfect PvP or a PvE situation as a multiplayer. It would work so well. But again, this is something like an end game thing. I hope they don't release it this soon. But actually, Unity was supposed to be this, but unfortunately, they didn't follow it up.
So before I ask the final question,
Hmm.
one thing I want to say on this whole point is Assassin's Creed should, in my opinion, have been a blanket term series, just similar to like Far Cry and Elder Scrolls,
Yeah,
where everything can interconnect, but it doesn't have to be one thing. I just feel like Assassin's Creed has so much lore and backstory in Templars and Isu that it shouldn't be forced to go create multiple spin-offs, tell more stories. It should have the
it need not
comfortability.
have a multiple spin-off. What I meant was, like, because you know that we have only three major factions, so the maximum number of spin-offs should be three. If anything exceeds more than three, then there's something wrong with their head. So,
What
uh,
else?
but
What else?
sorry, go on.
What else more meaning by multiple spin-offs is if they made an Origins Templar game and it got popular and they made sequels, and let's say that sequels lasted for 6 games, that's 6 spin-offs based on the Templars. If they'd made 6 games from the Isu, that's 6 spin-offs from the Isu. So then you'll have 12 Assassin's Creed games
Oh,
of
I would play
Valhalla,
all of them, hands down.
six as Templar games, six
I would
Isu
play it.
games.
I would, if it comes consecutive, I will still buy it. That
It's just too much in my eyes. I just wish they had the creative freedom to not be forced to
thing
make
is,
games that all
that's what
have a
happens when you have an overarching game. It's like you saying in Star Wars, taking or the MCU for example. If you make Spider-Man, for example, and they introduce Iron Man and Spider-Man for somehow, I'm just giving an example. You wouldn't call the next movie as Spider-Man if you're focusing on Iron Man. You would focus on, if you're focusing on Iron Man, you would say it is Iron Man. You wouldn't say it as Spider Man, the training of Iron Man. You see where I'm going with this? So
Yeah.
if they want to go in a different perspective, they can. It just needs to be in the same universe. Just tell that it's in the same universe. People will be happy with it. But having a title that says Assassin's Creed and then having a Templar based story, that would not work. Or an ISO based story, that would not work. So
Uh, I will admit now, I don't think an Isu based game would work because
yeah.
it is meant to like playing around history. And I do want more Isu based, but I am actually more comfortable with Isu based content being in TV or transmedia. I want the games to be. I do want more. Assassins vs Templar games,
Exactly.
I
Like we
do
can
at the same
have
time.
that. We can have that. We can still have that even in a Templar spin-off. Like we can have that even if it's a pure Templar origin story. We can still have that conflict because that's the whole point of that story is that we saw Templars' views of having that peace through order, and assassins are messing it up. We can fight against the assassins and then do it. But so far, in any of the games that I have seen so far, Templars have used the Hidden Blade against the assassins. They have not used a singular equipment that was unique to them. And I find that like it's like saying like, hey, the Templars have money and assassins have skills. So that's not
Pretty
something that I would not like to see. I want to see skills from a Templar-based story game. So, but I hope it's not in a title with Assassin's Creed. I hope it's in some other title. That's all. That is my perspective. Like, should Assassins be in Assassin's Creed? Yes. Generally, yes. As a general term, yes. But if you're going to make a full different storyline, then having the name Assassin's Creed is not useful. So,
So I think this brings neatly onto the final point I want to discuss, because this is where things get so complicated and actually technically detrimental to the series. Now, the term of the term itself, do we need assassins in Assassin's Creed, is vague. And because by technicality, the term assassin didn't originate till the 11th and 12th century.
mm-hmm.
So, in theory, to have a game with only assassins, as some fans want, would mean the games can only be made after the 11th and 12th century.
But
Before they
also
were.
also they messed up one thing is that, okay, this is again the purest nature, right? That is why you have Origins stating that, hey, it is the hidden ones, and that's how they bring it. And as far as they could go, they went ancient Egypt. You still have a lot of timeline between that you could explore, and the problem is they're still maintaining in the northern hemisphere, which I hate. Come
Yes.
towards the south. I mean, there is the Mayans, there is the Australians, there is Indians, there is China, there is Japan. They're not even getting away from Europe or the Americans. Man, I mean, like that's disappointing. But yeah, sorry, I'm going back to my fan fiction land, but I just hope it
But
happens.
the the point I was asking this question is, I was seeing about 10, 20 posts on Twitter saying, no more Assassin's Creed games as the hidden ones. We want real assassins. And now, in my opinion, because of how Rogue set up the hidden ones, if we focus just on assassins and we go off how they were meant to have originated in one, you're only allowed then to
I
pick a
think
game
I think
after
I
the
th-
century.
I think that feeling originated where the gameplay also deviated a lot. Um, if you notice how Origin was, it was mainly an action-based RPG, and towards the end is like it was only in the mid sequence that you get the hidden blade, and it was only like towards the end you were becoming an assassin. To be fair, so that was an acceptable form of Assassin's Creed with an RPG element. Now you went with Odyssey, where you are not an assassin, not the hidden one, but you are a mercenary that is still that is able to do assassin damage, but not an Assassin's Creed uh sort of like the rules like parkour and stuff like that. That like the core game elements is what I think the people miss a lot. Like it can't be hidden ones in the next game, but they what they expect is that they get to play as the character themselves, the hidden ones themselves, rather than just being like an off-brand thing. This is what happened with the DLCs. People enjoy the DLC for Origins because that was the last time they were able to play as sort of an assassin character in an RPG setting. With Odyssey, you're still not. Even with the um, Legacy of the First Blade, you're still not an assassin. End of the story, you're still not an assassin. Fate of the Atlantis, you're still not an assassin, which is why people felt conflicted, like, or brought up this thought, like, what? Why are you not putting assassins in Assassin's Creed? And that's where it started to happen. So yeah.
which is why I think the past three games, but I'm not counting Odyssey because technically Odyssey's before Origins. So
Hmm.
let's say Origins of Valhalla. I think they were perfect because I loved seeing the how to word it. I love seeing the birth of the Brotherhood, but I also love seeing in Valhalla so far. I keep saying so far
Hmm.
that how the Templars and Assassins are actually affecting the world from a third
Exactly.
person.
That's the whole
But
point of that entire conflict. You need to see that resonate. Otherwise, that meaning of like the two ideologies colliding, that I didn't see much with Odyssey, because mainly because I was exploring, doing side quests. I didn't find plot points that actually shows that they were doing something. Only isolated incidents, but not a pinpoint situation where they were actually affecting the entire Greek world. So, yeah.
which is why I am going to go on record, even though I love going off track, and I want Assassin's Creed to explore any angle possible. But the next one, I don't think they should be just an assassin. I think they should focus on the hidden ones.
Yeah.
As long as we get a good parkour system and all I really care about in Assassin's Creed, and
Also
I'm
play
probably
as an hidden one. I mean, I expected to play as a hidden one in Valhalla at least. Like, and I don't want to spoil the ending, so I'll just wait till you finish it.
the only two things I want for the next Assassin's Creed game, and I know I'm alone in this because everyone's just yeah, I'm just alone. Is I just want
No,
the
you're
hidden
not.
one.
I'll see if I can get my thoughts changed. If I can.
What I want from the next Assassin's Creed game is to be a hidden one with a hidden blade. The one part of Assassin's Creed that I know I'm alone in not being too much of a big fan of. I enjoy it. I think it's great, but I'm not like super hyped about it. Is parkour doesn't really bother me that much, and I know I'm
That is
alone because
fair. That is fair. Because not many people know how to use the system or feel comfortable using the system that was there in the previous games. Like, for example, James, when he recently started Unity, he didn't know how to use the Puppeteer system. I showed him how to use the Puppeteer system, and he's starting to love it. And he's now able to understand the parkour mechanics. And then when he started playing the Odyssey, he understood the difference in that parkour mechanics and why people felt that need, like, hey, where is that parkour, where is that puppeteer system, where is that control that I need to make that perfect run. and
uh,
and yes, I understand, but there are people out there who don't want that parkour element as well, because they find it too complicated. All they want to do is go from point A to point B, and as quickly as possible, without actually focusing on the puppeteer system.
well,
So.
I'm I'm on the case of after playing every single game since first week of Assassin's Creed One coming out, I do love how fluid the movement is.
Mhm.
If somebody gave me an Assassin's Creed game and told me you can have this extreme fluid parkour system, but there's not going to be much stealth,
Oh no, then
that's
I will still not take it, because that's not Assassin's Creed anyway.
me. I really do enjoy Unity's parkour. I probably spent about 20 hours learning Unity's parkour before I played it, so I understand how the new game's parkour feels more clunky.
Hmm.
At the same time, with how I can be stealthy in Valhalla compared to Origins, I'm not bothered that there's no clunky parkour because I'm really enjoying how I can hide on ropes with arrows, how I can stealth in bushes, how I can feign death. So when someone comes on and says, "Hey, he's
Exactly.
dead," I
Exactly.
jump up
Exactly.
and grab them.
So that's the thing. That is called having a tool set. And unfortunately, in the recent games, they are very much nerfed or useless. Like, for example, again, this comes under gameplay systems, because of how the RPG mechanic was made. You cannot effectively use your tools that is given to you. Like, for example, say your smoke bombs, for example. In Unity, you use your smoke bomb. It just covers the screen. It has the same size, same utility, no buffs or nerfs. But if you take it with Origins, there is a damage buff to it. I mean, there is a damage thing to it. So if you're able to drop a bomb and if you are what on a higher difficulty, it deals less damage, and it's not reliable on situations. You see where I'm going with this, right? So as an assassin, you have your tools, you have your skills, and if you're not able to use them and all your skills are based on numbers, then this is where it feels very restrictive for the older players. This works for newer players because they have not experienced the previous ones, where the system was very much consistent in their tools, in their mechanics, and not based on numbers.
And I think as a fan who's been here since OG Assassin's Creed 1, I do kind of warm more to Valhalla over the sense of I really just dig the assassinations and I really dig
Hmm.
Garrett assassination and I really dig that a lot of areas are built where I can be that Connor style assassin with the bow and arrow and the you get the brutality combat
Yeah.
like Connor, but I think Connor's is more brutal in Valhalla. But you also get to be that sneaky assassin through the hedges, use arrows to take off your opponent. I was just bummed that I couldn't use Viking harpoon in a tree. That was just my biggest bum. I was like,
You
why
do know
not?
that the harpoon, like, they could have done so much with the parkour with that harpoon, and it was a missed opportunity. They could have re-implemented the rope dart system with it, still a wasted opportunity. And now it is like a mana based system. Like, for example, it's not a toolkit anymore, right? Like, for example, the harpoon, it's not a toolkit. None of them are toolkits. They are sort of special abilities, which is not reliable. It's like saying like, hey, if I stab this haystack, I can now earn the ability to harpoon people. It's not something like a smoke bomb where you can buy at a shop. It is something different entirely. So, which is why I hope in the next few games they find innovative ways to introduce new tools, reliable tools, so that we can use this to effectively use our stealth rather than just having our combat numbers go up.
I really think to the best way for them to reintroduce tools and still keep the formula is going to go all the way back to Revelations, and that is where you could craft bombs.
Yeah.
You could craft your tools and improve your
You know,
tools
the
using
best setting for this is China.
air.
Because in China, they're the ones who invented fireworks.
So it would make sense then, it would make sense in an RPG, just on a slightly off topic, but where you make a level one smoke bomb, which is just basic smoke and a
Exactly.
bomb, but you then learn the ability where if you add bits of shrapnel or bits of rock into it, it's going to give just one baseline damage that gets buffed if you're in a higher difficulty, or so it works no matter what.
Yeah.
But it's the whole fact of your
Yeah. It
fixed tool, you
exactly.
improve
It is a
skill.
fixed tool. It needs to be a fixed tool. It should not be something like, hey, because you don't have enough damage numbers or you're so under leveled, it does not work at all. This happened with Syndicate. Like, for example, you have the hallucinogenic darts, right? The ones that goes berserk and kills people. If you are underleveled, it does not work on higher level enemies at all. They
So it just on baseline damage.
no damage at all too. It does not do damage because the hallucinatory dot does not deal damage. It
Oh yeah.
only makes them go berserk. In Syndicate, it's not reliable because you need to be leveled up to that particular, either equal to their level or higher than them, in order for them to be affected by it, which is bad. Which is bad.
So the essential workaround would be, in my opinion, would be to make all tools that are always reusable. They're not abilities, they're tools,
Yeah.
but pull them out of damage numbers. So they'll always give. If you make a smoke bomb and you add extra gunpowder plot with shrapnel to cause damage, then that damage number that you've added has to stay fixed no matter what level you
Yeah.
are. So if it's let's say 50 damage, it can't mean that if you throw it on a boss, that 50 damage is going to be nothing. It'll have to then be. So if that smoke bomb can instantly kill a level 10, then when it goes higher up, it should have a similar effect to a level 50 boss.
Exactly.
Sounds stupid, but it should. Them that gear should follow a
A baseline.
schedule.
It needs to have a baseline and maintain on it. So
So
So, for example, say if you want to have a leveling system, like be creative with your tools, one way they could go for is that only limit the numbering system towards your gear and your weapon abilities. Your tools are totally different. So,
Exactly.
in that way, say like, and also maintain the percentages within 100%. If you have a critical damage that's more than 100%, then that limit needs to be there. 100% is your maximum. It should not go higher than that. That's all I say. If you have 400% damage, that should not be there. 100% damage is more than enough to kill an enemy. So I always hate the numbers because it's pointless. Um, but yeah, what I mean is that if they want to create a perfect tool system with an RPG setting, the best way they can do so is make reliable tools, say smoke bombs or whistle darts. For example, say you don't want to whistle, but you can use a whistle dart. Like you can shoot your bow and it makes a whistling sound, right? What if that whistling sound was louder? That could be like a distraction point where the guards can go and investigate. That's a tool.
Oh, that's another episode that we need to bring up at one
Exactly.
point.
So this is something that like Assassin's Creed is saying like, hey, there's nothing else to go for, but you have a lot of possibilities. You have a whole story to tell. It's just that they're not choosing it, which feels bad, right? It's like they just maintain, like right now what I see is right now they're maintaining all the major franchises towards the northern hemisphere, and they're not going towards the equatorial or the south. The only time that we saw that was with Origins, and that's pretty much it. That was the only title that I saw was that was somewhere in of a different origin type. Like for example, until then it was Europe. Let's say AC1 was Jerusalem, Persia. We already had Prince of Persia at the time, so there you go. Then you have AC2 Europe, AC3 Europe, AC4 Turkey. That is Europe plus Asia. Then you have um, Black Flag. No, AC3 that was America. AC4 Caribbean. AC5. I mean Rogue. AC Rogue was New York. That is America and the islands. So then you have Unity Paris, Europe. Then you have Syndicate London. Then you have Origins Egypt. This is the only time it differed. You see that difference is pretty rare. Then you have Odyssey Greek Europe. Then you have Valhalla England, which has London again, and now we're going back to France. It's like they're maintaining all in like in the northern hemisphere, and the southern hemisphere is just waiting for their opportunity to be discovered. And we have a lot of tools, a lot of mechanics to discover.
There's a lot. So this is all we have got time for tonight, but
Yeah.
I do say that thank you for joining us, and
Sorry, I deviated from the actual final point, but yeah.
I like deviations. But I think this episode was great to visit because back when I first started, I was so new. I had so much enthusiasm for the series. But as the year has grown, I have learned a lot more through my friends, through the sisterhood, through the community, that I found this was best to revisit now because we've given a balanced approach that I do agree that they should have more freedom to explore, but they shouldn't deviate from the core principles that they started with.
Exactly.
If,
If
I don't think they should have Assassin's Creed Templar origin story, but I would love to see another form of Rogue again in
mhm,
a different form.
yeah. So, but if they want to make a full Templar based game and have a different title, that would work wonders. Like it would help uh, purists not to go for it if they don't want to, and at the same time, those who want, which is a majority, would go for it without that guilt of being harassed online, saying that hey, it is not an Assassin's Creed game and it's called Assassin's Creed. Sorry for that pale imitation, but that's how I feel when they sound like. So yeah.
We'll never know because a lot of people just.
Oh yeah, they're rude online. They're really, really rude.
Yeah, I've been told. I've been called many names since I've done this show.
Oh my. But
But
we just have to power through. We work in the darkness of the light. We are assassins.
well, this is sadly all we've got time for tonight. I do want to thank you for joining, though. It's been
Anytime, I would come back anytime if you need uh, a really, really good topic to talk on, like this one and the ones before. I would love to talk about it.
and if you guys, as I always say, if you guys have anything you want to talk about and you would like to join me in the podcast, you're more than welcome to shoot me a message on Twitter at Let's Talk AC Let's Talk. Sorry, you've got me on Twitter handle then. Or head over to my Twitter and you'll be able to get a link tree with information on my email that you are also free to email me. Just do not send me abuse.
If you have
Because
any AC theories, link me up. I'm on Twitter at Ikraik _ in original. So just follow it up. I think the link will be given whenever it is posted. But if you're into theories and stuff like that, you can follow my content. It'll be mostly theory posting, finding new stuffs, because the whole point about the next Assassin's Creed is what we are doing, right? Like, I know Valhalla is not fully over, but I'm already speculating what would be the next plot, what would be the next part of the story. And if you're into that, do join in. And if you have any issues with how to play a particular system or something, I would gladly help you out. I have played almost except few of the chronicles like Russia, because I didn't like it as much. I have played everything else in the Assassin's Creed game. So if you have any issues on how to play this properly, please let me know. I can fix it up for you. I can help you to improve yourself to be a better assassin, or maybe a better Templar in terms of rogue. So there we go.
seems like we had a shameless plug at the end there.
Yay!
Shameless plugs. I'm gonna have to edit that out.
Yeah. Nah.
Only team.
Yeah, well, we just need to advertise always.
If you check the description, as always, any content his Twitter handle will be in the description. I always guarantee that anyone who joins the show will be given full shout out and full mention of a Twitter. So don't have to worry if you come on the show, you're not going to get like, no, I am going to tell people to go find you and listen to your content because it's only fair.
Right. Also, I
So,
will try to mentor you like Haytham did in Valhalla, and maybe give you the leap of faith.
I still think Valhalla's Leap of Faith is actually, not to sound rude, but one of the best Leap of Faiths in the game because having Ezio, who was an assassin, do a Leap of Faith and have no emotions over it, compared to Ava, who was like, oh my god, it's like being alive.
uh,
You know,
but the thing
that
is,
was.
for Ezio, he was trained under his father when he was young.
Oh, that's true, but maybe it's just maybe I just kind of love the moment where she's like, I feel alive. That was so priceless. It's like you do this weird jump into stuff, and next thing you know, she's diving off, giving this whole emotion. How it just feels like she's
The
living.
most funniest thing in Odyssey, Cassandra knew how to do leap of faith before even the Brotherhood was formed, which is amazing. But yeah, and sorry,
Yeah,
I still hate Odyssey. I know people out there who are friends with me love Odyssey. I'm sorry, but I really, really, really don't like Odyssey. It's not something that I prefer as my top Assassin's Creed game. Right. That's pretty much it. Please don't throw stones at me. But otherwise, yeah, I love the setting. I love the character Cassandra. Her voice acting is amazing. And Mirini. Mirini is my go-to favorite quote. We always keep moving forward, always forward, and we are untouchable. That quote always lives me by. So
well, thank you for joining, and see you all next week.
yeah, see you soon. I hope.